Okay, sure more people will be joining us. So, Jarina, it's a Friday. Did you came from work? Did you start working already?
Yes, I came from work. I did a lot of stuff. What
Okay.
about you?
I'm actually work from home since March, and today is what? More than 2 months already since the start of the lockdown.
And how was the lockdown for you?
So far, so good. We had a lot of work in the office, even though our setup is work from home. I am still able to squeeze activities, both from PHRG and my other activities. Like yesterday, I was guest at CCAP HR Leaders Forum.
That's
So yeah.
what was
So
it about?
Oh, the topic yesterday at the CCAP forum was really more of remote working. So
Wow, that's really interesting. I
mm,
would really like to explore that as well.
sige, sige. Maybe I know. Actually, we have speakers who will be discussing that. If I'm not mistaken,
Mm-hmm.
uh, our speaker tomorrow, Daphne, will be discussing about work-life balance, and she may be able to touch on that on working remotely. But today, our topic is about how to maintain excellent relationship with your clients or stakeholders under this crisis. And right now, we have 41 people who have joined us, and we're still waiting for more. We'll be starting in about 3 more minutes. So sa lahat po ng kasama namin ngayon sa webinar na ito, maraming salamat po. We're just waiting for more people to join, and happy Friday. It's a
Happy
Friday today.
Friday! Thank God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday. By the way, everyone, I would like to introduce to you my co-host. This is Jorina. I will formally introduce her to you guys later. But Jorina is part of our Philippines HR Group Volunteer Council or Volunteer Core Team. Kasi in the Philippines HR Group, what we do is we give opportunities for our volunteers to also join us in our learning sessions for them to be able to be more um, uh, uh, to train them in hosting and doing webinars like this, activities, virtual programs like this, as well as when when we're already back to normal, then we have a lot of volunteers who would also be heading programs or soon to be programs of the Philippine HR Group. So right now we have 43 people. I'm sure by 6 o'clock, more people will be joining us. Sige, let's start in a minute.
Sir Darwin, sa Philippine HR groups tayo mag-broadcast. So pwede ako mag-share ng watch party.
Yes, of course. Yes,
All right.
please do.
Okay, thank you. Aba, naman yung picture ni Jorina.
So before we start, I would like to say hello to Dee Angkot. Hi, Dee. Hello, and I know you're watching from Dasmariñas, Cavite. Hi to Patola986. He or she is coming from the national government sector. Okay, so we are starting. So magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. A pleasant Friday afternoon. We are now on season 2 of the Philippines HR Group virtual learning session. And this is class 1. At the previous season 1 of the Philippine HR Group learning sessions, we have 4 classes, and we also have 4 classes for season 2. And for class 1, under season 2, we will be starting with a very interesting topic. The topic that we have for today is how to maintain excellent relationship with your clients, stakeholders, or customers under this crisis. And we have a very special guest. He is a good friend of mine who's also a trainer. Our guest is Mr. Ekon Malik, which we will be formally introducing in a bit. But before we introduce our speaker and the topic that he has, let me give you a brief background of the discussion that we'll be having for today. In the customer service industry, we know better than anyone that our industry thrives of excellence relationships. And we understand that nurturing these relationships early on is imperative, especially during times of crisis. A positive relationship history with customers, clients, and stakeholders can help protect your organization from reputational damage during such crisis. In order to foster strong foundations with external as well as internal stakeholders, organizations need to focus on developing and maintaining a two-way symmetrical communications, whether in normal situations or abnormal situations. This is an overview of what will be the discussion for today. And um, let me introduce to you formally my co-host. My co-host for today is Jorina Capiral. Jorina Capiral, as I mentioned earlier on, is part of the Philippines HR Group Volunteers Core Team. And as I mentioned, part of our mission in the Philippines HR Group is to train our volunteer core team to be not only to train them in the different facets of HR, but also in hosting programs of the Philippines HR Group. Just to give you a brief background, everyone, Jorina, my co-host for today, is an admin and finance manager of Caparal Appliances and Furnitures, which is also uh, located in Cavite. She's also a millennial who has a YouTube program, Millennial on the Loose, which is uh, basically under lifestyle and productivity videos. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-host for today, Miss Jorina Caparal. Hi, Jorina.
Hello, Sir Darwin. Thank you so much for inviting me to co-host in this webinar. I'm very honored to be part of this. And I am very thankful for the Philippine HR group for giving me this opportunity to volunteer for this.
Okay,
And
and
with that, I would like to introduce
introduce our speaker.
introduce our speaker, Mr. Ekon Malig. Mr. Ekon Malig has been a trainer for classes in over 16 state universities, and he has taught in universities like University of Makati, Jose Rizal University, and Asia Pacific College. Currently, he is also a board of advisor for Lyceum of the Philippines and a professor of Trinity University of Asia. As someone who is a training consultant in leadership, his clients are very varied, so they have a lot of variety, and it usually comes from multinational corporations to government agencies such as Ramcar Group of Companies, makers of Motolite, and also ABS-CBN, Eagle Cement, just to name a few. He also studied in Ateneo University for his primary and secondary education, and later went on to St. Joseph's College a to take up Bachelor of Arts in Economics, and to the University of Santo Tomas for Bachelor of Sciences in Tourism. Mr. Ekon says he finds joy in being able to help forge lasting partnerships with his clients. He truly believes that he is improving lives one trainee at a time. And I do believe that, because when you train someone, it lasts them for a lifetime. Let us welcome Mr. Ekon Malik.
Hi, Ekon. Good
Oh,
afternoon. Thank you for joining us
hi.
this Friday.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Sometimes it gives me goosebumps, and I realize, okay, that's me. Okay, thank you, Sir Darwin and Jorina, for the introduction. as they say, it's Friday, right? Not Friday, it's
Friday.
Friday. Yeah, but you know what? Since this pandemic, I don't really sometimes, I'm not aware of the days anymore, whether it's a Monday to Friday. It's like
Yes.
to me, the whole week is a weekend, you know?
Correct. And it's more
So,
than 60 days after the lockdown, right? Now,
yes.
Econ, I know that one of the most affected industries during this
Oh,
lockdown
yes.
is the training and also the
Training
event
and
industry, right? So,
also education.
an education industry.
Yes.
So, or what have you been doing over the past more than 2 months already?
Right. One of the things that I realized that um, everyone is bound to go digital sooner or later. It's just that because of the pandemic, what happened to us is that we were thrust into going to digital sooner than we want to. And because of that, I have been conducting um, more than 10 webinars already ever since the start of the lockdown. So I have my own webinar, which happens on a weekly basis, which I will mention later in the end of our discussion. But I've been guesting as well in different Facebook pages for webinars. Basically, I'm just trying to stay relevant and being seen online, even though that there is a pandemic ongoing, because we want to be relevant to our existing clients and potentially for our future clients. We want them to see that we have innovated even how we train people. So that's
Yeah.
And
basically what I've been doing.
agree on that, agree on that, Econ. And not only being relevant, I think what's important is that you still provide value to all the people who are able to watch and hear from you, right? So the
Right.
topic that you have for today is how to maintain excellence or excellent relationship with your clients, either your stakeholders, your customers, your clients under this crisis. For those people who are watching us right now, as I mentioned earlier, Econ is a good friend of mine. He is primarily a training consultant, and he's known in the industry as a customer service guy. And I'm very happy that he said yes to be part of season two of the Philippines HR Group's virtual training class. So Econ, um, you already have the floor. But before you start, I'd like to tell everyone that at the end of the presentation of our speaker, there will be a question and answer portion. If you have questions, please type it at your chat box, and my co-host will be able to submit and ask those questions in your behalf. Okay?
Okay.
So
Right.
Econ, please have the
So
floor.
yes, I'm very happy that the Philippine HR Group had its season two. Because imagine, Crash Landing on You does not have a season two, but we do. I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching right now suddenly can now relate. Yes, that's one of the things that I was able to adjust myself to, because I used to not be a big fan of K-drama, but because of the pandemic and the crisis, it gave us a chance to have an open mind. So I said, okay, when I turned on Netflix, let me go and see what this K-drama is all about. So I checked it out, and lo and behold, I am done with season one. That is why I'm very happy that there is PHRG season two, but Chloe doesn't have one. In fact, I even moved on to Itaewon class. I was on my second K-drama and I finished it already. So I think I'm going into the Inheritors, okay? So that's one of the good things. So see, kita niyo
Very
naman,
addicting.
I'm updated. But if you think about it, a lot of the viewers who are joining us right now, I am no spring chicken. If you look at the tree, an acacia tree, it's like me. I'm half a century old already. Okay. So with that, I'm just trying to relax everyone, the people watching. why am I known as the customer service guy, is because I'm very sensitive. I'm very sensitive. I'm very observant. Every time I go around restaurants, I go to malls, I like observing people. That's, I think, one of the good traits a trader should have, is to be able to observe a lot of people. So, but you have to have a fine line in observing, because pag sumobra ka dun sa line, nagmumukha kang chismoso. All right? So you have to observe, because in observing, you learn. The things that you teach, you now see them in action. Okay? So remember, in any relationship, whether it's professional or personal, communication is the key. I'm sure no one will disagree with that. So let us start talking about communication and relationship building in times of crisis. Okay? Now, you have to first define in our minds what a crisis is, because back in the day, and I'm sure most of the people who are watching, when we talk about crisis, there are certain things that we're only talking about. We're talking about flooding in Metro Manila. We're talking about traffic. Traffic is already a crisis, but it's something that we learn to live with on a daily basis. When there is typhoon season, it is a crisis. When there are earthquakes that are happening, and to the extreme, there would sometimes be like a tsunami warning, all of these things. These are all crises. But never in our lifetime did we include pandemic. Why? Because we were not born during the 1918 Spanish flu, the pandemic back then. None of us were born then, except siguro probably the great-grandfathers. If you have a great-grandfather who's still alive now, then they would be able to tell you about what happened in the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. So pandemic or what we call viruses is now included in the crisis, because in the BCP, or the business continuity plans of different companies, always you would not see virus or pandemic being included. But now, because of what's happening, a lot of businesses are now adjusting to what is happening to us. We're learning as we go. Okay, so let us first define what a crisis is. It says there, by definition, crisis, it's a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. Okay? So wala pa nakalagay na virus, di ba? A time when a difficult or important decision must be made. And the last point, ito na yung pinaka-bago na nangyayari sa atin today, is that the turning point of a disease, when an important change takes place, indicating either recovery or death. So we now have included pandemic into the definition of what a crisis is. Okay, so we have to be very clear first, Kevin. Yeah. So we're adding pandemic into that. And if you look at the street, this is in China, wala masyadong tao. Pretty much what is happening during the ECQ, in the quarantine period.
Sorry.
Yes.
Are you sharing your screen, your PowerPoint, because we're not seeing it?
Oh, okay. Thank you for telling me. Sorry, because I immediately when Jorina mentioned, I thought the screen was already out. Okay, thank you very much for saying that. Okay, here we go. So at least we just started anyway. Hold on. Here we go. There. Can you see that?
Thank you.
So this is basically what I was mentioning earlier. When we talked about crisis back then, we never include pandemic. Diba? Hindi natin yan. Lagi bagyo, different typhoons, hurricanes, even strong rains. Diba? Yung torrential rain lang nagiging pandemic sa atin kasi it brings about disease, because you will have flooding. And when flooding is there, susunod yung mga diseases brought about by the rats. If I remember correctly, di ba, marami silang disease na natatala. So these are all part of what the crisis is. And the third point there is that now the turning point of a disease, when an important change takes place, indicating either recovery or death. So now kasali na yung pandemic or the disease in crisis definition. Now, if you look at the next screen that I have, a crisis situation is defined as a stressful time in an individual's life, okay? When they experience a breakdown or disruption in their usual, and this is the big word for us, normal daily activities or family functioning. There are certain elements to occur that make the situation a crisis situation. Diba? So, sabi dyan, normal daily activities. Now, if you think about it, have we been living the normal way, the way we used to, go about our businesses in our lives? We have not. This is a different time. Now, there are certain elements to a call that make the situation a crisis situation. So this, what we are going through right now, ladies and gentlemen, yes, it is a crisis. Now, if you think about it, why am I trying to define what a crisis is? Before we delve into the nitty-gritty details of the discussion, we have to be clear first exactly of what the crisis definition is. And there are 4 stages of crisis. So we are currently showing you the first one, or what we call prodromal stage. Okay. Was there a question? I heard somebody talk. Maybe somebody.
No, go on, Econ.
All right. So if there's if suddenly someone really wants to ask a question, Jorina will take over and I will answer the question. Okay. So prodromal stage is that this is when someone in an organization discovers a critical situation. They usually bring it to the attention of their supervisors. This is the situation that happened back in Wuhan. So yung unang-unang taong nagkaroon, the first person who was infected with this disease or the COVID-19, the doctors who were there, the first doctor who took notice of this, they're now looking at the situation and wait a minute, they're thinking, what type of disease is this? This is similar to the SARS and MERS, so this is considered COVID, but they called it COVID-19. This is also known as either the pre-crisis warning or precursor. At this point in time, the critical situation is known only within the organization. And when we talk about organization here, we're talking about the hospital in Wuhan. Okay, so this is not yet visible to the general public. So this is the very first stage of the pandemic or the crisis that we're going through. And this is what we call the prodromal stage. Now, the second part of this stage would now be called an acute stage. Okay, this is where the crisis move from the pre-crisis to the acute stage. This is when it becomes visible outside the organization. So at this point in time, this was when the doctor, the very first doctor who discovered the first patient who was infected with COVID, he started raising flags, raising his arm, telling his supervisors. In fact, he was even writing messages and emails to the Chinese government. And he was saying that there's a new kind of virus, which is also called coronavirus, but it is different, a little bit new compared to MERS and SARS or H1N1. And at this point, managers have no choice but to address it. In this case, it wasn't the managers, it was the bosses of the hospitals and the government of China. Now, it is too late to take preventive actions as any action taken now is more associated with damage control because it has already started. In the moment that they brought the first patient inside the hospital, where they were not sure yet of what type of disease or sickness that this patient had. So, syempre, they did not have the precautionary measures yet. They did not wear the N95. They were not wearing the PPEs. So, at that point in time, remember, I saw this in a documentary in Netflix. The very first doctor who discovered it, I think after 30 days of discovering, he got, of course, 15 days after he got infected, and after 15 more days, he succumbed to the disease. So the very first doctor who found the patient number 1 also became a victim. He became a statistics to the disease. So he also succumbed, he died. So at this point in time, you cannot do preventive measures anymore because it has already started. So what we're doing now is damage control already. Now, the third stage, which is very familiar to us, this is what we call the chronic stage. The chronic stage is usually the longest of the 4, okay? This is where litigation occurs, media exposes are aired. Of course, you see it on TV, you see it in social media. Internal investigations and external investigations are now launched. Government oversight investigations commence, and so on. So everyone knows about it already. And this was the time that we already found out about it here in the Philippines, because we have been seeing it on social media. They have been posting that there's a new kind of coronavirus. But at this point in time, this was around the end of Q4 last year. This was about the Christmas time. But we already knew that there was coronavirus, but none of us were really taking it seriously at that time. Okay? Now, this can go on for years, and in some cases, it never ends. And recently, I saw a saying or a quote from Bill Gates. He said, the only way we can get rid of the new norm and get back to our normal lives is for a vaccine to come out. Now, up until the time that the vaccine comes out, this is our new norm. Doing online webinars, learning, educating people through the internet using different platforms. But it's all basically online webinars. So we are currently now at the chronic stage. Now, where do we want to go after this? This is the fourth stage, okay? But at this point in time, even though I see a light at the end of the tunnel, that light is still far from where I'm standing. Okay? Basically, I have had webinars where I've talked to frontliners who are doctors, and they're my batchmates in school, and they are the frontliners of this, the disease that we're facing. And even them, they're saying that at this point in time, the only thing that we can do, since there is no vaccine within sight, the only thing that we can do now is control the one thing that we can control, which is ourselves. Do not go out of your house, stay home. Because if there's no one out on the street, there's no one to be infected. So that's basically what they're saying. So we're currently at the chronic stage. Now, the fourth stage, where eventually where we will be, but as to how soon that will be, we are not certain. All we can do now is really pray to God that we will reach the resolution stage. The resolution stage is a place where we want to be. This is the final stage of a crisis. This is when things begin to return to normal. Because why? Effective resolutions are now into practice, and they go as planned. Meaning, potentially, this can only start happening to us when the vaccine comes out. So the incident begins to fade from the spotlight. This is really where we want to go, okay? We want to be where the fourth stage of a crisis, which is the resolution stage, okay? Now, going back to our discussion, part of the resolution stage, you have to be able to manage your information. You have to make sure that you get the right info at the right place at the right time. Because sabi nga nila, there are so many people who are spreading fake news. And we don't want to look like Pinocchio, that we're telling news that aren't really real. But what we're trying to do is that we're simply trying to create panic and fear to the masses. This is something that we wouldn't want to do. This is part of the follow through of the fourth stage, which is the resolution stage. It's important to remember that when you can't get your hands on the information you need, you can miss opportunities and your performance drops. As it happens, the information management ability organizations need to succeed is already within their grasp. So you have to make sure that you get it at the right place, at the right people. So don't just simply believe what you hear and see in social media. Okay, I know that Sir Darwin is an advocate of this. You have to make sure that when you get your news, it is accurate and true. Okay, so now, how people would often ask, how do we now develop relationships before a crisis? Okay, the operative word there is before a crisis. Okay, this is very important. Okay? Now, partner relationships or businesses or business relationship should be developed ahead of any crisis. So there's a solid foundation for a well-coordinated work through each crisis. Now, for example, you have existing clients. When you have existing clients, you have to be able to have good working relationships with them. When I say that, you're talking about give and take. You know, when they talk, you listen, and when you talk, they will also listen. There's a story that I remember. There's this one priest trying to mentor another priest, a newbie who is a seminarian at that time. He goes, Father, why is it that when you are talking, people keep quiet and they listen? You know what the seasoned father or priest said to the seminarian who wants to be a priest as well. The seasoned priest said, you know, my child, the reason why people listen to me when I talk is because when they talk, I listen. So that's just basically in any relationship, that's what you need to do. So you have to be able to give and take, listen well, especially to your customers, your stakeholders. You have to listen to what they need so that you as a customer service provider, you're able to customize your service, your product, in a way that your customers really appreciate it. So you have to be able to even, some people might be asking, what if you already, you don't have good relationships with your current customers and now there's a crisis? What do we do? Okay, we will get to that later on. But prior to getting into that detail, I want to be able to show you the 5 things to avoid during a crisis. Okay, for the people who are watching us, for the people who are listening, I hope you also have a pen and paper, or you can do a screenshot of what you guys are seeing, because we can, this is very important, okay? Now, let me share with you the 5 things to avoid during a crisis. Number 1, inadequate accessibility to stakeholders, meaning if you have a stakeholder, they have to be able to talk to you. They have to be able to reach out to you. It's vice versa. You also have to be able to reach out to them, and you also have to be able to talk to them. Why? So that, remember, always make sure that you keep the lines of communication open. That's one very important thing to do, okay? So you make sure that you have open lines of communication with your stakeholders. Now, next would be lack of understandability in the haste to make communication or to communicate. Now, you're saying, some people are saying, why do I have to talk to my customers now when everyone is infected with this disease? Everyone is going through a hard time through this pandemic that we're all experiencing. Why do I have to talk to them? So if you think about it, some businesses, some customer service provider do not realize that there is a need for you to talk to your customers. Why? So that the customers know what is happening. Will you be opening when once everything goes back to normal? Is this going to be business as usual for you? Why? Because remember, these customers of yours are your suki. Whether it's a service, it's a product. Like me, I'm a trainer. These are my regular clients. So they have to be able to know, am I still alive? Right? So your business, is it still going to go through? And you never know. Sometimes when you need help, it might be your customers who will help you because they love your place so much. They love your items that you sell. They love the product. They love your food. They love your services. In the event that you have a hard time and really struggle through this pandemic, you'll never know. One of them might be able to lend you a hand by giving you additional funding just so you can operate. You'll never know that because remember, customers will help you if they love your product. Nowadays, just like what Sir Darwin was mentioning earlier, sabi niya, talagang the reason why you do webinars and you have to do this, you have to stay relevant, is because you're adding value. You know what, guys? Nowadays, one of the most important things now is that it's value versus price. And if you notice, some people during this pandemic, they buy things, when they go to the groceries, it's like it's always Christmas time. But during Christmas time, grabe tayo when we buy food for our stocks in the during Christmas time. Now, even it's time of pandemic, and this is basically summertime, okay, that's another question. What is summer now? And summer has changed, right? So if you think about it, people now buy things They don't really care. Sometimes even if it's expensive, they will buy it. Why? Because it's a necessity. It's something they feel that they need to have. So for them to know that, and for them to know your situation, you have to be able to communicate to your customers so that in the event that you might need help, you'll never know. One of your customers might be rich enough to help you and fund your business just so you can continue. Okay. I've seen this in a lot of fairy tale movies, and I'm sure you have as well. It happens, guys. Okay. Next, the third thing to avoid during this crisis is that if you're looking at these pictures, is that the lack of enthusiasm in the contact. Meaning to say, when you're already talking to your customers, you know, you sound, look at the first picture there, you look like a robot. Meaning you're very transactional. Meaning you go through the right steps. You greet the customer, you ask for their order, you do the upsell, you give their order in a timely fashion, you give them exact change, all of these things. Sa McDonald's ka tinatawag na 6 steps, okay? But the thing is, after the transaction, if you talk to your customer and ask them, just like in the call centers, in surveys, you ask them, how was the level of service that I provided you today? If you ask them, they'll say, it was okay. Why? They got what they needed from you, but when you were doing it to them, when you were giving it to them, you sounded very robotic. Ito yung example na I'm sure na-experience ito ng hosts natin, si Jerina at si Sir Darwin, even Beverly, our sponsor from Jobstreet. When you walk into a famous fast food chain, even if you're alone walking in, they'll greet you, welcome, ma'am, sir. Even if you're just one person, because they're already very robotic. They know that when someone walks into the business, you have to greet them. But of course, if you're just one, try to customize your greeting. If you see only one man, then you say, good afternoon, sir, welcome to, or good afternoon, ma'am, good evening, ma'am, good morning, ma'am, welcome to, then you say your name, right? So do not be robotic. Now, the next, when you talk about lack of enthusiasm, is that look at this pug, the pug wearing the jean jacket. Very smug, very grouchy looking. Sometimes, that's why in call centers, and I'm sure Sir Darwin is familiar with this, that in every cubicle back in the day, there will be a mirror right in front of the cubicle. Because why? So that when you're talking to your customers, when you're talking to them on the phone, even though they cannot see you, but you can see yourself, you have to smile on the phone so that look at me now. When I talk to you and I'm smiling, the tone sounds a little bit different. Hello, how are you? May I take your order, please? But if you don't smile and you just look, may I take your order, please? How are you? You sound grouchy. And mind you, people, a lot of us sound grouchy and look like the pug, the black pug on the picture, is because we do not see ourselves in the mirror. You always have to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I happy serving my customers today? And when your answer is yes, go ahead, by all means, serve your customers. But if your answer is no, you have to say your mantra. You have to say things that will empower you in order for you to be happy. Just like the person below, holding a watermelon that's ripe, ready to eat. It looks sweet. The eyes are smiling, even though you can't really see the whole face of the person. By the look of the eyes already, you know this person is happy serving their customers. Okay, so that's number three. The fourth one would be problems with timeliness. Sometimes people say too little or too late. Timeliness is that when you promise something to your customer, whether it's during a pandemic or not, you have to make sure that you stick to your time when you say it. In the call centers, and I'm saying this because I've been in the BPO for a very long time, in the BPO, normally when we put a customer on hold, we tell our customers, not an estimate, but we tell them an exact time. We say, may I put you on hold for a minute? Or you say 1 to 2 minutes. And the reason why I say that is because a minute waiting on the phone is like 8 minutes. Okay, that's how long it feels, even though it's just a minute. So when you say, I'll get back to you in a minute, allow me to put you on hold. When they say yes, make sure that before the minute ends, you're able to get back to them. Because if you don't get back to them, when you come back, it's not going to be just an inquiry, but it's going to be damage control, because you now have to appease this customer who is on the line waiting for you for over a minute. And you said within a minute. They will be disappointed and they will be irate. So when you commit to times, deadlines, you make sure that you say it. Like for example, during these times, there are so many Pabili apps out there right now. You don't want to go out, so you book, and you book a person and tell them, this is the list of things that I need in the grocery. And when you're on your way back to my house, kindly pass by the local McDonald's and get me dinner. And you try to estimate, you more or less tell them that it'll probably take me within 2 hours. Why? Because if you don't exceed 2 hours, they'll be happy. When you come in earlier than 2 hours, they'll be happy. But when you make an estimate that is wrong and you go over that, rest assured they're going to pay you, but they're not going to be happy. And in fact, they might not give you any tip at all. Sometimes, even though they already paid for a service for you to buy them stuff, and you come back and you deliver it to them, they're going to give you extra tip. Why? Because they're so happy that you helped them not get sick. You did not go out and be exposed to the virus, and you helped them. And you're going to give them a tip. Why? Because you gave them a time that you worked on. You made sure that you were able to work on the specific timing that you promised them. Okay, so always try to avoid that. When you talk about time, make sure that you are on time. When coming to the office, back in the day, when I have trainees in different corporations, I always tell them, being on time is late. Being early is on time. And people who have attended my trainings, you would know what I mean. Because if you're just simply on time, there's a possibility that you're late. On time meaning you're on time in the building, but you're not on time in your actual cubicle. But if you come in early, being early is on time. So try to remember that being on time is late. Being early is on time. Okay. Next, perceptions of arrogance. Okay, let me just drink a glass of water. So perception of arrogance, examples, stakeholders are not valued. Now, if you are familiar with this person, he is a well-known actor. Okay, his name is Will Ferrell, and in this particular movie that he's acting out, the title of the movie is Anchorman. Now, when you've seen this movie, you would know the type of character that he has, the behavior that he always manifests in this show. It became very popular. In fact, it went on to having a part 2. So there's an Anchorman 2. And he said to a girl that he met for the very first time, this is what he said: I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. What he's basically saying is that he's a celebrity. He's a well-known person. He's a personality. So that could be a sign of arrogance. So when we talk to our clients and customers, please, as much as possible, try not to be arrogant. You know, lower yourself down, be humble, because remember, you're the one providing the service, product, or I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of the things that we've discussed so far. And mind you, we're not done yet. Okay, we're almost there, but we're not done yet. 5 things to avoid during a crisis is that the inadequate accessibility to stakeholders is number 1. Number 2, lack of understanding in the haste to make communications or to communicate. Next, lack of enthusiasm in the contact. You have to smile, always be happy that you have a customer. And problems with timeliness. When you promise, when it comes to time, you have to deliver. Okay? Remember what they always say: under promise, over deliver. So we say, I will be there in an hour, and that is your estimate. And when you arrive 30 minutes early, they're going to be ecstatic, they're going to be happy, and they will want to stick with you, whether it's a service, a product, or an item, or a food, or if you're a restaurant. Okay? And the last one is the perceptions of arrogance. This is the 5 things that you have to avoid in these times of crisis. Okay, so these are very important, guys. Now, how to build relationships in times of crisis. This is very important. And this is the gist or the meat of our conversation. Now, when you do build and sustain, when do you build and sustain relationships? That is a question that I throw out there, and you can answer in the chat room or make comments. But, you know, plain and simple, the answer to this, and a lot of people might be racking their brains, you know, thinking of the answer, when do you build and sustain relationships? Remember, the answer is you do it all the time. Always. You never stop, okay? Why? If you take an extra 5 minutes to ask the person who is walking towards the counter, assuming that you're a service provider and there's a person approaching you, now ask them how they think of your products. How are your products? When they answer and you listen to them, you will have built a stronger relationship already at that very moment. Because remember, the question again is, when do you build relationships? All the time. Plain and simple, guys. There's no other way of going about it. But you build relationships all the time, especially with your client. Especially now during the pandemic. You do not stop, okay? And I cannot stress that enough, okay? Now, let's talk about the 6 steps that we all need to take in order for us to build better relationships with our customers, even during this pandemic, okay? So number 1, do restore service ASAP, as soon as possible, if possible. Now, in short-term crisis, the goal should be to resolve the issue and return to normal as quickly as possible. This happens a lot to us when there are power outage. When there's a power outage, we always pray to God, sana bumalik na agad ng kuryente. Now, guess what? In BPOs and call centers, what I normally do when there's a power outage, I count. Because more often than not, I will not reach 30 seconds and I know there will be electricity coming back. And I'm certain and 100% that Sir Darwin can attest to this because, of course, part of the business continuity plan of any outsourced company is that the service must not be disrupted, okay? But you're saying now, Ekon, that's a little impossible. Pag may baha at binaha yung lugar, how can I open my business? Of course, you're not expected to be able to open. That's why it says there, the goal should be to resolve the issue and return to normal as quickly as possible. But the quickly or the quick as possible for you may be 2 or 3 days. Pag bibigyan ka pa ng customers naman, papatawarin ka because it's just 2 to 3 days and they will understand if they see your business filled with water. So they're going to understand that, okay? Now, in an ongoing crisis, it may mean trying to mitigate negative impacts while the situation evolves. And I would like to share this to a lot of our listeners and even our hosts and our sponsors. I'm surprised that when I go around, when I do my errands and buy grocery stuff, I see businesses that are relatively lucky still because they can still operate. Like, for example, you know, the different milk teas that you have available in the market right now. If you think about it, people do not need to go to your place and sit down and, you know, have the milk tea there in your place. So what I'm trying to say is that you can just simply be a delivery counter or a takeout counter. But I'm surprised that I've seen a lot of milk tea places that are closed almost the entire time of the pandemic. If you think about it, between you guys and all of the people who are listening out there, they can restore the service as soon as possible. The moment that the pandemic started, what they can do is put a plan in place where they can just simply have their products take out or delivered by a delivery service or a logistics company. Di ba? Yung mga Grab, Angkas, Joyride, these are all businesses that are now, if you think about it, are flourishing because they can continue to do business even under the pandemic. Okay, that's number 1. Now, number 2, also, by the way, continuing on the restoration of your service is that share regular updates through email, post in social media what your plans are, reopening for a milk tea, for example, milk tea opening soon, we will have our delivery and takeout service up and running by next weekend. So if you talk to your customers, they will know and they're going to anticipate. Remember the Starbucks that opened its doors for the very first time during this pandemic in BGC, because it's only for takeout or drive-through. Imagine in BGC, and I don't know if Jorina and Sir Darwin have heard about this, but they cause traffic because of the long queue of cars going into the drive-through. It took about siguro a kilometer long of people anticipating because they were so excited and they missed your product that you're now going to reopen. So they all flocked to the streets. And the good thing is that they were in their cars, so at least social distancing is still being practiced. Okay, so you update your customers through website, through your email, through social media. And some businesses would have a fish bowl on the counter where you put your business card, or you have a guest book on your table so that you can have your customers, the regulars, even the walk-ins, write their number so that you can get in touch with them when you need to in the future. Remember, important there is that if the service can't be restored at the levels the customers are used to, okay, look, not at the level that you're used to, but at the level that the customer is used to, just briefly and convey to them that you're working to mitigate it and outline the best ways to reach them and set expectations for the response time. Remember, ayan na naman, pumapasok naman yung response time. It's very important. Because when you don't respond on time, when people wait for you, are existing, we want to maintain them even under this pandemic. Okay? Now, second was, do have a plan. In everything, you have to have a plan A, plan B. Now, some people might say it's easier for me to say that, but remember, when you're applying for a job, you don't just simply aim for one company and that you can go for and set your heart on.
Hi, everyone. I believe our speaker is just having some technical issues, and he will surely be right back. The discussion that he is into right now is about the 6 steps in building relationships. And he is already at number 2, which is, do you have a plan? So we have 4 more steps. Um, I'm sure Econ will be joining in a few. But again, thank you for all the people who have joined us. While waiting for our speaker, let me just have a shout out to our people in the panel. Our people who are in chat. I'm seeing Edison Andamo, Lani Santos. I'm seeing D is still there, and I'm seeing actually 63 people who are joining us today at this very interesting and very value-adding training that our speaker is providing us. Ekon, are you there already? Ekon?
Uh, yeah, hello for everyone. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat box. Oh, he's starting.
Ekon, are you there? Are you back? Okay, it seems that our speaker is still trying to join us. Again, let's just wait for a few more seconds. I'm sure he will be joining us. He is already on the topic of uh, about the 6 things that you should be able to have in terms of building effective relationships with your stakeholders. And he's already on number 2, is having a plan. He mentioned that whether you already have a crisis or not, it's important that you are able to. Okay, we've actually lost our speaker. Just give us a few seconds, guys, and I'm sure Econ will be rejoining us in a bit. Um, Hello to JC Hepiga. Hello to Diane Garcia. Lani Santos is asking if you guys will be having a copy of the presentation. Yes, all the participants will be given a copy of the recording. We're just waiting for our speaker to rejoin us. I'm sure he is having some technical difficulties. We will also be sharing the video of the presentation at our FB page. Ekon, you're back.
I'm back. I said, suddenly I realized the screen disappeared. Well, God, don't worry. I panicked and I was able to fix it
Yeah.
right away. I'm so sorry that this happened. You know what? Technology sometimes fails us. Okay.
I understood. Ekon, you're actually still on number 2 of
Yes, I
the.
know. I know exactly where I am. I remember. Forgive me, people. So let's continue. Let me
Okay.
start sharing my
I'll give you
screen.
the floor again. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay. There. Can you see my screen now? Sir Darwin, can you see the screen? Bev?
Yes, yes,
Screen?
we
All
are
right,
seeing your
good.
screen.
So I'm on number 2. So what I'm saying is that you have to have a plan always, whether you already have a crisis plan or you're developing one on the fly. On the fly meaning you're doing it as we go, and that's basically what's happening to most businesses in the country right now. Not just in the country but worldwide. We're trying to develop a business continuity plan or a crisis plan on the fly as it happens, because this is something that we're experiencing brand new. Okay. So you have to establish a plan that will keep everyone in your business, including your support team. So meaning you have to dedicate people who are supposed to take care of informing people, taking care of your employees. You have to have these in place. This will also keep your customers calm. Hearing from confident, prepared, and knowledgeable employees is exactly what they want to hear in the event of an emergency. So plan A, plan B is very important. Even computers now even have a backup memory, okay? So you have to have that. Next, remember, you'd want to hear it from a person who looks like an expert. When something is happening, you want to see people are remaining calm. For example, Sir Darwin, Beverly, and Jorina, if you're in an airplane and there's a turbulence and it's really quite, wild, the turbulence that you're feeling is wild, and you look at the flight attendants or the cabin crew and they're panicking themselves, that's not going to make you feel good. You're going to be nervous because why? They might know something that you don't. That when you ask them what's happening, they have to look composed. So customers want to know that you can manage the problem and hopefully prevent it from happening again. They need to know that you care about them. Okay, this is very important. Now, number 3, do provide a consistent response. Sabi nga ni Dwayne Johnson, success isn't always about greatness, it's about consistency. Remember, consistent hard work leads to success and greatness will come. Your crisis communication should be consistent with your brand's voice. You have to take into account the seriousness of the situation across team. Remember, consistency is key. When you update your people, you have to keep updating them on a regular basis. Unlike sometimes when what's happening with our the pandemic situation, you sometimes are waiting for an update and then say it's 8 o'clock at night, and I'm sure Sir Darwin will agree, 8 o'clock at night daw or 9 o'clock, biglang pala 8 o'clock in the morning na nagsasabihin kung ano yung update about what's happening. So I'm sure you know what I mean when I say that. So let's just, between you and me, guys, you know what I mean, right? So you have to be consistent when you're talking about communication. So remember, communication or consistency is key. Now continuing on that is that this is a time where people unite. In fact, we can't be more human than now, diba? It's to provide a clear message that you are there to help and you're going to help provide a timely and consistent customer experience during crisis situations. It also will help you bolster the confidence that the next time there's a crisis, customers, your regular customers would know what to do and what to expect when you try to execute your plan. Okay, we can't be more human than ever, but today, during this time of crisis, let us be more compassionate, let us be more humane to people and to the things that are happening around us, okay, globally, not just in our country, but globally. Number 4, do not be defensive, guys. This is very common. This is a default system to some of us Filipinos and some human beings out in the other countries. There's no time to deny. Don't cover up or shift blame. It's not the time to blame anyone at this point in time. If someone keeps blaming someone, you just ask them, what have you been doing to this, to our situation? Are you helping? If you're not, just keep quiet, be an observer. But if you're trying to help, it's okay. You help and go out there. Transparency and honesty are very, very important. It's a key, okay? Both internally and externally. It's okay to say that you don't know the answer because you may not know the answer at all to a question because you're still evaluating the situation. Just make sure that you keep the lines of communication open between you and your customers. It's not us versus them. Remember, we're all in this together. One of the good things that this virus has brought about our entire global experience or the whole earth is that the virus is just like positions in the call center. It's non-hierarchical, meaning you can be rich, you can be poor, you can be in the government, you can be a celebrity, you can be anyone from the masses. You can get infected with this disease. It does not pick anyone. Everyone is susceptible. So it's not us versus them. We're all in this together. So let's join hands and help each other out, okay? Remember, involve your customers as well because they like it when you bring them into the situation and the solutions. When you think of solutions and you bring them in because you listen to what they're saying, that is very important, okay? Number 5, do not ever make hasty decisions. You may need to shift tactics and reevaluate your plan several times throughout the course of the crisis because remember, you're learning it on the fly and you're learning it as it happens. But you want to be able to act swiftly. Do not make hasty decisions in the heat of the moment or what we call spur of the moment. Do not make those types of decisions. It's better to make calculated decisions so that you'll end up taking calculated risks. You know where you potentially might end up. Remember, keep your options open and revisit your plan as the situation unfolds. You never know when you might need to pivot and you don't want to be locked in a stance where there is no longer appropriate given the circumstances. Remember, it is the word here is very important, pivot. A lot of businesses are not able to pivot and they just stay where they're standing and look what happened. They will eventually fold. I remember one person, the CEO of Nokia, he was crying at the last day of Nokia. He goes, we didn't do anything wrong and yet we failed because they did not give up. They did not innovate and they did not reinvent themselves. That's one of the things that you have to do. You have to be able to reinvent yourselves. Now, the last of the tips that I'll be giving you is don't ignore risks. You can never be too careful, especially if health, safety, and security are at risk. This does not mean that you should jump into conclusions, but it's often better to be overly cautious. It's okay to be paranoid during these times because why? Being too paranoid will protect you. Why? Everywhere you go, you have to have a mask. Everywhere you go, if you can wear a PPE, you can do that. Why? It's going to protect you from the virus. Everywhere you go, you have your alcohol with you. And as much as possible, you don't go anywhere. It's okay to be paranoid during these times because why? It'll make you survive, okay? It's rare that companies are criticized for being too careful or taking a potential risk too seriously. If anything, your customers may thank you for the abundance of concern. I have one client, I will not say the company, but they're makers of a famous battery, okay? Even before this pandemic, and I've had them as a client 2 years ago, every time I go into their building, they would have a temperature check already. They would scan my forehead. The first time I was going in there, and suddenly the guard put this in on my forehead, and I was like, okay, he's taking my temperature. And they've had that for over 2 years already. So imagine, will I get mad at them because they're being overly too cautious? Absolutely not. Because why? They just want to make sure that everyone who goes into that building does not have any illness, malaise, or sickness, or any type of disease. And I'd like that. Why? Because I know I'll be safe going into their establishment. Okay? So remember, it's okay to be overly conscious at this point in time. Now, people are asking, really, give me tips, give me concrete examples on tips on how I can show that I genuinely care for my customer. I want to be able to practice that. I want to be able to do that. Guess what, people? It's already staring us in front of our faces. It's already there. You know what? You know what the answer is? Simply genuinely care for your customer. Sorry, what happened to that was you have to just simply, truly, genuinely care for your customer. That's how you do it. When you see a customer, don't think of them as money. Don't think of them as a cash cow or a milking cow. Look at your customers as someone who's going to help you stay in the business. So you have to genuinely care for your customers. So that is the tip that I'm going to give you or leave you with today. If you guys have any questions, we will get to Sir Darwin and Miss Jorina with that. And at this point in time, I'd like to thank two very important organizations. One is the Philippine HR Group, and the other one is jobstreet.com. I'd like to say, JobStreet, don't stop giving jobs to people, okay? They need it, especially now during the times of crisis. Sir Darwin, did you learn a few things from our discussion today?
We had a lot of aha moments there from your presentation. And I do have a few questions that I would like to ask.
All right.
But before I go there, let me just again thank our sponsors, JobStreet.com Philippines, for being our
There.
major sponsor, our sponsor for our Philippines HR Group virtual learning sessions, and this is already season 2. And also, I would like to have to greet a few people who are on the line. We have 68 people who have joined us. Let me just greet Marvin, Lani Santos, Daisy Hitiga, Noel Asoy. We also have Diane Garcia. We also have a few more people. Edison Andamo, John Pamposa. We have Raquel Agustin, and of course the Uncut. And I actually am seeing our VP External, Mr. Neil Lomakad, who is also on the line with us.
Yes.
So,
Hi, Neil.
maraming salamat po sa patuloy ninyong pagsuporta sa amin, Job Street, and to all our viewers. Now, let's go to the question and answer. Now, let me just start with the Q&A. You mentioned a while ago, Econ, that for us to have a successful relationship with our clients or our stakeholders, and when I say stakeholders, this is not only for managers or people leaders. This is for HR also, because HR are also people leaders. Now, as an HR person, as a people leader, as a manager, head of the company, you mentioned that there should always be clarity and transparency whenever you communicate with one another. Is that correct? Now, my question is, there are certain privileged information that management would normally have, or that HR is private. Would you say that when you say being transparent, are you saying that even those privileged information should also be shared to your stakeholders, or external stakeholders, or your clients?
All right, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. Now, here's what we call, but there are answers, and sometimes there are questions that you want to ask, and sometimes you want to answer. I'd love to answer you, but that is above my pay grade. So if you think about it, there are certain things like what's happening right now at the moment, okay, in our country. Not everything we are being transparent. We do not see everything that's really happening, but during these times of crisis, what we need to do or what we need to see in a company, and I'm talking about a company now, not just a country, in a company is that what we need to see is a leader or a representative from the management who will always be there as a spokesperson and regularly would update people as to what is happening, what we will be doing in the future. And this is something that's needed, because what's going to the effect of this is that it will calm people down. Yes, we all know that there are certain things that we cannot share to everyone, especially financial positions. You're not supposed to be sharing that. But you share things that are necessary for the world to continue. And when I say the world to continue, their world is the office, because the office is the one that provides for their personal world, which is the house, the home, and the family. So not everything you can be sharing, but things that they would want to hear, that we are still in a good place, people. We are still going to operate. We're not going to close down. What we're going to do is we're going to assign you to be working from your homes. As a matter of fact, if we can have you bring your desktop. If you don't have a laptop, let's have your desktops set up in your office. We will send our IT people. And I know for a fact that one call center that I know did this actually. They had, instead of buying new laptops, they had the desktops in the houses. But of course, there are certain things that you have to be signing for, because you as an employee are accountable to the company.
Okay.
Right?
So
I
so
hope that was able to answer.
agree. So basically, you're saying that yes, you have to have clarity of information.
Mm-hmm.
You should be transparent,
Mm-hmm.
but also as a HR, as a people leader, you have to be mindful of the kind of information that you will be sharing. As much as
Yes.
possible, share only information that would have positive impact to your audience.
Exactly.
Share
Exactly.
share informations that would be more of a general structure, but would not put your stakeholders or would not put your customers or clients in a position where they will be worrying or be worrisome
Mm-hmm.
of what's happening, right?
Right.
Now, let me just go back to what you highlighted a while ago. You mentioned earlier that whenever you are discussing important informations to your audience or to
Mm-hmm.
someone, you should always be in a position of confidence, in a
Right.
position of power.
Ito yung
And you know,
example ko is when you are in a plane, right? Diba? You go on trips very frequently and gumaganon yung plane. Diba? Pag tingin mo, ang nininervous yung cabin crew. That is not going to relax you. That is going to make you worrisome. Magdadasal ka na bigla kasi kung mismong yung person who is supposed to be in control, composed and confident, eh siya mismo mukha nininervous, alam mo na may mangyayaring masama.
I
Tama?
agree. I have the same experience way back.
Yes.
This is just me
Go ahead,
speaking.
share.
We were in Puerto Galera going back to Manila. It was at the middle of the sea. It was stormy, and you know what? Surprisingly, the people who were manning the boat were the ones who are already
The
wearing
best.
their life
Okay.
their life vests. So if you're doing that, I mean, it has a very different
It has a negative
perception.
impact, right? It has a
It has
negative
a negative
impact.
impact. Now, let me go back to my question, Econ, because this
Sure.
is this is very important. This is something that we need to instill to our HR professionals, our people leaders, that if you are delivering sensitive information or if you're delivering something that is critical or crucial to the person or to the organization, it's very important that you are um, you exude confidence,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're not confident on what you're trying to say, on what you're saying, then the people who are listening to you, the people who are looking at you, will also not have the same confidence level. Well, I mean, they will also lose confidence or lose hope of whatever you're trying to say. I I'll give you a perfect example. There was a time in in my past life when I was handling about more than 10,000 plus FTEs, and I have to talk to a certain
Mm-hmm.
line of business where I have to let go of like 150 people. And this is just a temporary layoff. This is just temporary retrenchment. Um, um, for us to be able to do that, there should be clarity, and you should be talking in a position
Mm-hmm.
of of power and in a position where you are very much confident on whatever you're saying. Kung i-deliver mo to na sasabihin mo na oo, i-retrench ka namin temporarily, pero alam mo na hindi namin sure, baka mamaya kung ano mangyari, baka
Mm-hmm.
mamaya dahil alam mo na sa pandemic, baka hindi tayo magbukas. Ano mo? So this is the things
Mm-hmm.
that you need to be
Sure.
mindful of, that whenever you're trying to deliver a message, make sure you deliver it with clarity and with confidence, because that's
Right.
important.
Correct.
I remember my mentor said to me way back, or told me way back, that it's not only the message, it's how you deliver it. Because delivering the message to your audience is putting your emotions to it. And
Right.
people will actually feel that if you're just giving
Yep.
a BSP, right?
Yes. As a matter of fact, every time I teach classes and I'm talking about, let's say, call center training or talking about personality or even customer service, one of the things that I highlight, which is very necessary, basically, it's uh, adding to what you said. It's not what you say, it's how you say
It's
it.
how you say
You
it. Correct.
have to look like an expert when you're talking about, for example, let me give a good example. Let's say I'm a spokesperson of the country and I don't look like I'm certain to what I'm saying. I look like I'm asking or doubting myself. Imagine how will the masses feel. They will feel hopeless. There might be an unrest because they will not listen and believe me when I say that, don't worry, SAP or the SAP will go to you. Just wait for your barangays and all of that. But if I don't sound like an expert, that I know what I'm talking about, that I really am part of the planning process and I exactly know the procedure that's going to happen, I will talk to you about it and tell you, and you will believe me and you will say, I feel better now. I will just wait for my share. Di ba? Parang ganun.
Agree.
So remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Agree. And just to give our audience a perfect example, most recent most recent personality
Mm-hmm.
who actually embodies that, who I believe would be the president of ABS-CBN, when he made an announcement when he was in the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
and when he made an announcement about the possible closure of ABS-CBN. He was very composed. He was very direct. He was clear. Another perfect example is the president of Taiwan and the president of Singapore. Remember, the way they deliver their speech is very succinct. It's very clear. They have a strategy on how they provided information to their countrymen and to their audience. Now, and unfortunately, we have leaders also, or managers who are not like that. I mean, we're seeing leaders who are they tend to flip flop. They tend to say one thing and then say another thing, or whenever you ask them questions, they're not very confident in answering it. And sometimes, and we have to remember this: for you to build relationships, it's very important that you are always in a position of confidence, in a position of power. Now, Echo, let me give the floor to my co-host, because
Yeah,
she has,
Jarina.
yeah, Jorina has some questions coming from our audience, and I'm sure that our audience, of who are also listening now, will be able to get some insights coming from your answers to these questions. So take the floor, Jorina.
Thank you so much, Coach Darwin. I would like to start with my personal question. Is that
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
okay? So, this is a question from me. I remember from a book that I read, which is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg,
Mm-hmm.
where crises can be an opportunity to move organizations to change bad habits. of an organization. With that said, how can we take a crisis and make it into an opportunity to strengthen relationships with our stakeholders?
That's a very good question. And the basic answer to that is that, first of all, you have to have a different perspective on how you look at crises and pandemics and yeah, all the different types of disaster that may happen our way. You have to always look at it from a different perspective, because if you keep looking at it the same direction, it's just like the definition of insanity by Albert Einstein when he said that uh, the definition of insanity is you keep doing the same thing over and over and you expect to get the say a different result.
Yeah.
How will a different result happen if you keep attacking the problem head on? Because there are times that you have to go to a solution where you have to go around a problem. So if you keep on attacking it in the same direction, you will get the same answers or you will get the same results. So pretty much in crisis like this, if we look at it, there are so many industries that are heavily impacted. But what are the industries that are making so much money now? In fact, there are industries that are making so much money now than ever before because of the crisis. Remember the delivery service or the pabili service? This was non-existent before. There were online groceries, diba? There are online groceries where you make your choices on what to buy and then deliver it to you. But nowadays, there's a pabili service. There's actually booking where you can book a person to go to the grocery for you. So this is like a personal shopper, right? Personal shoppers before only existed for clothing, diba? Like you're an actor and you have a sponsor, so they more or less know what suits you and they're gonna buy what they think that is good for you. But now the personal shoppers or the pabili services, you give them a list on what you want and they'll come back to you with the exact same list. If they're not able to get that in one grocery, they'll go to the other grocery to get you that thing. Why? Because you already technically paid for it. What happens is that you transferred money already, or you're going to pay them when they come to you and you give them the money. So to me, opportunities in any situation, there will always be opportunities. Makers of masks have never been more lucrative at the moment, right? The groceries, everything was closed. All the industry is closed. The economy is closed. But the money makers, the makers of vegetables, the produce, the deliverers of produce, all these different types of items that you see in the grocery, they're making money. So even when there is crisis, there are opportunities. Uh, you just have to be able to look at it from a different perspective.
Thank you so much. That really sheds light because usually I notice a lot of people when there are crises, it turns into something of a victim mentality where they think they have no
Mm-hmm.
way out. And I think this sheds some light on that there is opportunity no matter what the situation is. There can always be a
Yeah.
solution to a problem.
Let me give you one example. I have a client who is in the food business. They're a unlimited Korean barbecue. Now, with this crisis happening, how can they sell? How can they make money when people can't go to their restaurants and eat, right? And buffets, their basic way of making money is people go to them and eat at their place. What he did was he came out with vacuum sealed products, you know, what you get in the buffet for the unlimited Korean barbecue. He came up with vacuum sealed products and came up with leveling or tiers. So if for tier one, you get these items. For tier two, you get these items. So of course, when you say tier one, there's a specific price to that. So imagine he came up with 999. You get two orders for the Unli Korean barbecue, and you get the griller for free. They'll
Oh,
deliver it to you. You own the griller already because they're gonna give it to you brand new, unused, and they'll give you two sets of your order, so you can have Korean in your house using their grill, and they can still make money out of that. Imagine they made a lot. There, it's enough to sustain their business, even if all the other branches basically are closed, but because they have that service, they still continue to pay for their employees' salaries. So that's one way of looking at it.
That's a really great idea. Okay, on to the next question. With the pandemic, most businesses have been rushed to integrate technology to their business processes. During the
Mhm.
transition period, how can we ensure that our stakeholders are all aligned throughout the process, the entire process?
Well, if you think about it, it's not that we were rushed into going into the digital format or electronic format. It was bound to happen sooner or later.
Mm.
Um, a lot of business owners who are very conservative in the way they run things are going to be left behind if they do not go into the digital route. But without this pandemic, they can still delay. They're thinking, no, I can still run my business the way I've been running it over the past 30 years, and it's still doing well. But because of this pandemic, a lot of the normal then isn't a normal anymore.
Yeah.
So what happens is that you have to be able to find other platform where you can still generate or generate income or revenue for your business. For example, all the deliverers out there, the Grab, Express, Angkas, Joyride, they're now into uh, delivering food. If you just focus on your business doing that, it's okay. But that's only going to the apps of these particular companies. Now, if you have your, for example, if you have your own digital platform where people can look at your menu and order online, so that's another venue. Of course, the old way of doing it is to just simply put your phone number on a flyer, on a social media, on your Facebook page and say, you can call us for delivery or takeout, so that even before you get to our place, you've already made your order. When you get there, you just pay and get your items, right? But that's another platform, going through the traditional route using your phone. You can use the different apps all of these companies have, Grab and Cash. But you can also make your own app if you think about this and put this on your website where people can talk to you directly and order food directly, uh, either takeout or delivery. So that's another platform. Now, old timers would say, I'm not ready to go to the digital format. It's okay, I respect them. But the thing is, they might eventually close down their business because people are not going to be able to find you in the new platforms. And the new platform is digital shopping, online shopping. That's the way to go. So you have to be able to look at situations where you need to reinvent and you make sure that you jump into the bandwagon of people going into the digital platform. Like what I always say, you are bound to do that sooner or later. It just so happens that it became sooner for us, not just us in the Philippines, but the whole world. So let's try to take advantage of this situation. This is a pandemic, but we can still beat this by going into different platforms where we can continue to generate income and can create a stream of revenue using the different types of platform. Don't just be, like what I always say, move out of your comfort zone.
Yes, yes, and I agree with that. Usually, since in the Philippines, we are mostly comprised of micro, small, and medium enterprises. So that would mean that our economy is based on off that. So I was thinking, with that in mind, a lot of micro-sized and small and medium businesses aren't able to cope up with the integration of technology.
Mhm.
So that can be a problem for a lot of businesses in the Philippines. And recently, I have heard a lot of people, a lot of businesses having retrenchments and shutting down just because of the crises. Okay, so let's
Mhm.
move on to the last question, sir, Ekon.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Uh, Relating to human resources, how can we ensure customer experiences for our employees who are the organization's internal clients throughout and after the crisis?
Again, sorry, it lagged a little bit for me. How can HR,
Relating to human resources, how can we
right?
ensure customer experience for our employees who are our internal clients throughout and
Mhm.
after the crisis?
Right. So this is I'm basing this basically on what a billionaire said, Richard Branson. He said that the number one asset of any company are not the customers, but their employees. Remember, take care of your employees and they will take care of your customers. So meaning to say, if you take care of your employees, don't worry about sales and money coming in, because your customers who love how you're treating them, which is your internal customer, like what you just said, your employees, they're gonna take care of your customers, and people love that. So not every company has a employee engagement team. Back in the day, I used to work for eTelecare, and we had a department called eCare. eCare meaning it eTelecare cares employee care, and this company or this department, all it did was develop employee engagement, meaning the level of happiness of the customers or the people that are working inside eTelecare. That's their main concern. How can we reduce attrition? How can we make people happy? So HR departments must have another department, what we call focusing on employee engagement, so that you can take care of your employees. It doesn't necessarily always mean that it has to be monetary, because if you are working for a company, you can pay for the things that you want in your life. You can go to a good restaurant, you can go to different places. So sometimes it's when the company thinks of their employees and have these little events and gatherings, um, especially designed for their employees only, it makes you feel that you are loved. It makes you feel like you are cared about by the employer or the owner of the company. And sometimes that makes more sense than just simply giving them monetary rewards. So back in the day when I was with eTelecare, you would have bowling nights. You would have, you present your ID in, at that time I was assigned in Eastwood. You present your ID in different establishments and you get discounts, okay,
Wow.
as an employee. You go to the movie house, you show your ID, you get to go in for free. So these are things that would spark the interest of employees. And there are days that when you go up the stairs and you go into the pantry, because normally when you go in, you get water, or you, in Italy back in the day, iced tea, coffee are free, except for sodas. So when you go into the pantry, you'd be surprised. There'd be Starbucks inside set up. And when you go and line in, show your ID, you get a Starbucks for free. It's a mocha frappuccino. After you get your mocha frappuccino, you go to the next counter and you get a Krispy Kreme free. And they would do that all throughout the year, non-stop. And that raises the level of employee engagement. It raises the level of happiness of the people that are working in the same in the company, so that it reduces attrition. Or when people are working and they're happy, it produces better results. Remember, people who are happy produce better results. So I'm sure even Sir Darwin would agree to that. So you have to keep your people happy. How do you do that? You come up with little, things to make them happy. You know what would make you happy. So all you need to do is just set a budget and a time to meet and what you need to do so that the employees are fairly happy aside from just simply monetary. Sometimes it's the experience is what's needed.
Yes,
Agree on that. I think the gist of your whole presentation, although there's a lot of things that you've shared with us, I think I would say
Mm-hmm.
that from my end, the gist as an HR person is that in taking care of relationship, it doesn't happen while on a crisis. It actually starts your building relationship starts even prior a crisis would actually
Yeah.
happen,
It
right?
cannot happen overnight. You
It
develop
cannot
the
happen.
relationship
Yeah,
long
you
term.
you develop relationships, and similarly, these are relationships that HR people would have not only to our stakeholders, internal or external stakeholders, but also to our employees. Because again, we
Mm-hmm.
need to make sure that we always get the buy-in of our stakeholders and the support. and participation of our employees.
Very
Correct?
well said, Sir Darwin. I can't agree with you more.
Now, Econ, we're already pressed in time. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
happy with the questions that Jorina has actually asked you. It gave us a preview of what are the different aspects in
Mm-hmm.
different industries and different business with regards to handling relationships in a crisis. Do you have anything that you would like to promote from your end? Any trainings coming up, any webinars that you would like to promote, anything that you would like to share to our audience that who would like to connect to you?
Right. Thank you very much for the time. First of all, you can follow me either on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn using my name, ECKHONMALIG. It's very unique. That's also my email because there would very rare would there be another person named Ekon Malik. So my Gmail is ekonmalik@gmail.com. I also have a YouTube channel. It's also named under me. I hope that the viewers and people who are in HR can also subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to hit a certain number of subscribers. You know what I mean when I say that. So uh, I have a weekly show called Forward Pinoy, and it usually happens every Wednesday, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So I would have guests sometimes from the United States. Like I had one guest who works for the top three retailers in the US. So the topic was how retailers in the US cope with the pandemic. I had a doctor who was a guest, a frontliner, my classmate in Ateneo, and he was talking about how it is, how the pandemic looks like from the eyes of a frontliner. And his specialization was infectious disease. So he was really there with in front of the COVID patients. So that happens every Wednesday at 3 p.m. and they can look that up in my Facebook page at Econ Malig on Facebook. Pretty much that's it. No public workshops face to face at the moment. I'd be having several online classes that are in the works. I'm also writing a book, but I'm going to make it into an ebook so I can give it away to people. That's it. Just simply subscribe to YouTube channel and follow me on Facebook. I'd be happy to get that attention from the viewers and the members of the Philippine HR group as well. Again, I'd like to thank Darwin and the host and our sponsor, jobstreet.com. Remember, keep giving jobs, guys. And Neil as well, who I see is also online listening to us. Um, should Philippine HR Group need me in the future, I will always be here. I can never say no to Sir Darwin. When he said last minute, would you be available to do a talk? I said, just tell me when and where, I'll be there. All right. So,
Thank you, Econ. Thank you very much for that. Yes, actually, guys, just to share to you, when I reached out to Econ, he didn't have any second thoughts. He just said, "What time, what day, I'll do it."
right. Well, how can you say no to Sir Darwin in the Philippine HR Group, having over 200 members in 200,000
Yeah.
members in that Facebook page? You can never say no to that. And guys, look out. This is the season 2 of the Philippine HR Group virtual classes. Look out for the next classes that are happening. I think on the 23rd
Yes.
with Daphne, and there's another one with Jet Nera, who is also a co-league in the business, also a partner speaker in Arriva as well. Uh, and the other speakers, again, guys, I am just the starter of this virtual class. Kung concert ito, front act lang ako. Yung main heavy hitters natin are the next people who's going to be talking in the next few days. So thank you for the invite, Sir Darwin. At any point in time you guys need me, just let me know. Job Street, I'm here to help. Thank you for the warm reception. That's it. I'm very grateful and blessed to be here.
Thank you, Econ. And you, yes, you are class one, but again, you started very great, and it's really we're really privileged and happy to have you. Now, to all the audience who are asking if we'll be sharing this video, yes, we'll be sharing the recorded video of the whole presentation for this class one of season 2 of the Philippines HR Group virtual learning sessions. It will be uploaded in YouTube at the Philippines HR Group channel in YouTube, and also will also be sharing it at our uh, group page. And also, I would like to share to you guys our next topic, and this would be for tomorrow. Our next speaker, just to share with you, would be okay. Give me a few sec.
Ayan, si Miss Daphne Granville
Yes,
is also a partner in one of the organizations, PAC. She's also a member there.
correct. We'll have Miss Daphne Granfield tomorrow, and she will be discussing about work. This is work-life balance, but she termed it as work-live balance, and she will be explaining more about it tomorrow. And she'll be discussing about how to live your life in the new normal. And also, aside from that, we'll also have two more classes, and that would be for the coming 29th and 30th. On the 29th, we have set Sir Jet Nera, and on the 30th, the class 4 or the end session of session 2, we have the vice president of Sheer Waters, and this is a colleague of mine in the BPO industry, Miss Jen Barlaza. I would also like to share to you guys, aside from the the topic or the session for tomorrow, I would like to share with you um, another what call this another thing that
Event.
keeping
Another event?
event that
Yeah.
we have, and this is this coming Sunday. This is actually a radio. This is more of like a radio setup program, and it's called Trabaho, Buhay at Iba Pa under HR Cafe. This is a talk show. It's a virtual talk show. This will happen this coming Sunday. It's a launch this coming Sunday. This is brought to you by, of course, the Philippines Asia Group, and it's powered by 8 Media. 8 Media, for your information, was actually uh, my host when I was still in radio way back when Burns and I were part of when Burns and I was hosting uh, School of Life radio program under the RJAM Radio, and we're happy that they're sponsoring our virtual radio program. It's a virtual talk show. It's called HR Cafe, Trabaho, Buhay at Iba Pa. Our very first guest this coming Sunday is a labor lawyer. So for everyone who has issues with regards to labor law or questions about labor, please tune in this coming Sunday at HR Cafe Talk Show, Trabaho, Buhay at Iba Pa. It will be live at the Philippines HR Group. Okay, so again, Econ, maraming salamat
Thank
sa
you so
sa
much.
pagpapaunlak. And of course, my pretty and very intelligent co-host, Jorina. Jorina, thank you for joining me, and thank you for being the very first among the new batches of the Philippines HR Group volunteers to take time to join me as a co-host in this webinar. So how was it, Jorina?
It was very nerve-wracking. I was very nervous as well, but I'm very grateful to you for because you asked us volunteers if anyone would like to co-host, and I'm so happy that you gave me this opportunity. Thank you so much, Coach Darwins, and thank you so much for your very inspiring. I am very inspired to learn more about building relationships with stakeholders, and it was very it gave me a lot of things to think about with regards to building relationships. Thank you so much, Mr. Ekon.
Okay. And also, uh, again, please watch out for our program tomorrow, class 2 of the virtual uh, session, class 2 tomorrow with Daphne Granfield. And our host tomorrow will be no other than the Vice President for the Philippines HR Group, Mr. Neil Lumakad, who's also the Head of Training and Engagement at SGS. So again, for all the people Sa lahat po na nakikinig sa amin ngayon at nakasubaybay sa amin, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Econ. Thank you. Thank you, JobStreet.com Philippines, for being our sponsor. Maraming salamat. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
God bless.
everybody.
Yung link na